One of the great things about the ITF, it brings people together from across the university. And in fact, I've been here 36 years, and I've never seen a single activity, initiative of the university that has brought so many different people together from so many different parts of the university, all coming together around really a common goal, which is to identify a very large amount of resources that we can invest in the academic enterprise and the core mission of the university. So we're about strengthening our academic programs, our research, bringing in even better faculty, and improving the student experience.
So right now, when Phase 4 completes, we should be somewhere in the neighborhood of $50 million that's identified. 60 million, as you know, is the goal, and we feel with Phase 5 actually starting up as we speak, that will give us the momentum that we need to get over that initial goal of $60 million. 60 million is really within reach, and it's exciting to think about at this point. I think the energy and the change that we've seen in the last 2.5 years has significant momentum behind it, and to launch into Phase 5 coming off of a very strong Phase 4 will be enough in my mind to get us to the 60 million landmark number.
I want to welcome you all to the Innovation Task Force Phase 4 Showcase, Foggy Bottom edition. For those of you who the 2 hours we have together this afternoon will not be enough, and you have much more to say and offer, which we hope you will, there will be the Virginia Campus edition on Thursday afternoon as well. So especially for those of you who might be Ashburn-based, we would encourage you to come by that one as well. I'm Craig Linebaugh. It is my privilege to serve as co-chair of the ITF Steering Committee, along with my colleague Dave Lawler over here, who you will hear from later and have heard from before if you've come to ITF events. We continue to be involved in maybe one of the most exciting projects that I've been involved with in my now 36 years at GW. What makes it so exciting for me is how people from across the university, literally every facet of GW, whether they be faculty or staff or students, have come together around the Innovation Task Force with a common purpose, and that purpose is to strengthen our academic programs and to enrich the experience that our students have here at GW. I mean, that's our core mission. That's what we're here about, and to see the entire university rally around that together, and in some cases being willing to make sacrifices, quite frankly, out of their budgets, because ultimately that's what we need to grow the university. It takes resources, and this is about gathering resources in a way that makes the university more efficient, that makes us more customer friendly, if you will, that in many ways makes it a better place to work for all of us in this room, all of which is aimed at making it a better place for students to get an education and to grow as individuals. So again, welcome. I want to introduce to you, or at least acknowledge, I won't introduce to them, but I want to acknowledge the Phase 4 Exploration Committee. I know several of you are out there, but I particularly want to acknowledge the two individuals who stepped up and were willing to chair that group. Jim Massey, who is chair of the Speech and Hearing Science Department, my own department, and I think he has now told me that he will never let me come back to the department because I made him work so hard in this role. And Rich Cosentino, whose title changes so often that I'm never really sure what it is on any given day, but Rich will answer to anything. So I want to acknowledge them and the members of the committee that are out there. We'll be talking about the ideas that the committee has generated. You all will have opportunities to talk about at least 3. Hope you all be able to stay for that. But without my saying anything more, and Dave will be up here to give you more details and direction later, but it is my privilege to introduce Provost Steve Lorman, who has now been with us almost 2 years here at GW, and I can only say has been a great friend and champion of the ITF. So, Steve.
Thank you. Again, my thanks to Craig and all the people who have just worked so hard to move the ITF initiatives forward. For those, most of you are of course quite familiar with some of the concepts behind the ITF, but the overarching challenge, of course, was how do we as a university either operate more efficiently or generate new net revenues that we can put back into the core mission, the academic enterprise. And so at one level, this is an exercise in how do we become more efficient. But it's not efficiency for its own sake. And I contrast that with the same style of thinking, but in other contexts. So if we were a business, we would be asking, well, how can we save money to increase our profits and return more money to our shareholders? And as interesting that might be, if you're a shareholder, we're not a company, we're a university. And first and foremost, we're asking, given our mission, which is to educate students, advance research, and to serve the nation and the world, given that mission, how can we change how we use our resources, money, time, so as to put more of it into those things that matter the most and less of it into other things. So first and foremost, one of the great things about the ITF is its close alignment with the core mission. The other contrast I would offer on thinking about ITF is many universities, of course, have gone into exercises like this with the goal of cost cutting because their budgets have been cut. And so it is just much more interesting and fruitful, I think, to do what we're doing, which is to ask, we don't have to do ITF, but if we do it, it enables us to make really important investments in things we really care about, as opposed to other places where basically it's how do we keep the pain down to a minimum by cutting things that are least important. And so I think GW has been extraordinarily foresighted. And of course, this happened before me, so I can't take any credit for it. Although another couple of years, maybe I'll start doing that anyway. This happened, of course, before I arrived. My predecessor, Steve Knapp, and others saw the opportunity here. I also want to tell you that this has the attention of our Board of Trustees. They care deeply about the work you all are doing and all the people who are implementing ITF. And they care about it, of course, because part of their responsibility is to be stewards of the resources of the university towards the overarching mission. And so we report back regularly on ITF to them. They ask us questions. I just don't want to leave with the idea that we do this and they just don't care. In fact, if anything, they care extremely deeply about the success of ITF. The overall goal, of course, is to achieve not just one-time savings, but recurring savings. The most precious coin of the realm in university budgeting is not that one time, I need money for X, give it to you in 1 year. It's enduring budget obligation. Every $1 million of money we can spend annually is the equivalent of a $20 million gift to the university. Just so one way to calibrate it. $60 million of savings, or new net revenue, is the same as our entire endowment combined. That is all the money we've had put in endowment in our 190-year history. If we can, in this 5-year period, find $60 million annual savings, it's like doubling our endowment. So these are extraordinarily powerfully leveraged ideas. And so this work, which is now the Phase 4 work, really is part of a process that, while it hasn't been simple or easy, has been extraordinarily productive. To date, we've identified at least half of our target. That doesn't mean we're yet saving that money or getting that new money. We've identified the ideas and have in process the mechanisms to implement those ideas. The implementation, of course, will go out over the next several years as we move the first 3 phase ideas and whatever ideas come out of Phase 4 from ideas to actual practice. None of this is simple. The ideas came from the larger community, but each of the ideas required analysis, some judgment. Some of the ideas will exceed their goals, others won't. Whenever you do a large number of positive things, some of them work out great, some of them don't. But it's really the portfolio of ideas, it has a collection that we continually add to that really keeps this process moving forward and driving forward. Obviously, we have spent some of the money to date. So just so you know, that the monies, even the ones we saved to date or generated to date from new net revenues, of course, much of that money actually ends up in the schools and departments. So when we buy things more efficiently, a lot of that savings accrues to the departments and schools where the money is spent. And of course, we're leaving the money there. So those savings translate into more money that departments can spend on other things. Some of the money accrues centrally. So not only do schools and departments buy things, but of course, again, using the more efficient buying as one example of an ITF initiative, some of that money actually can be gathered together centrally. And that money, some of it I've spent it on better advising for our undergraduate students by hiring more advisors. I've spent it on research initiatives for faculty. I've spent some of it on research done by students. We spend some of it on information technology that allows students to better map out their undergraduate programs. And I spent some of it on startup funds for our new researchers, new faculty who come in. They come in with fantastic ideas. They need some money to get their work going, and some of the ITF money, in fact, has been spent on that. So these are resources to spend on things that I think most of us would agree are extraordinary. I actually also spend some on helping Teaching and Learning Center so that our faculty have more resources to evaluate their own teaching and to teach better. So I can't think of priorities that are higher for the university, and we have many new priorities coming down the road. As we move into the evolution of the strategic plan for the university, many of the ideas that will emerge from that will require new money, new resources. And much of that will undoubtedly come from the results of the work that you're doing here today. So while you probably won't get thank you notes for every dollar we save, I just want to make you understand how central this is to the university's success and how this work in this room right now will translate at some point in time into a new scholar getting resources to fund research, new student support, new support for advisors, things our students and our faculty and our staff fundamentally care about and that are really the reason we exist in the first place. So thank you for taking your time. I'm going to hang around for a while, if that's okay with the organizers, which I assume it is, and join you in your conversation for a bit. But let me thank you for taking your time out of the day. For most of you, being here isn't in your job description. You have jobs, day jobs, as they say. Taking time out from your schedules and adding this to your list of commitments is something that I personally deeply appreciate, the organizers appreciate, and I just want to make sure you know that this work translates into things that I hope really match our collective values and the reasons we're all excited to be at a university as opposed to doing something else. And those resources will go to good use. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you, Craig. And I just want to add my appreciation, too, for everyone that has come. One of the most encouraging parts of ITF is attending the showcases and seeing how we're sustaining it, how you're sustaining it by attending on a regular basis, whether it's on campus here or whether it's out in Virginia. There's a lot of familiar faces, people that have cared about this initiative from the beginning, people that are invested and passionate about making it the reality that it is. When we started ITF trying to figure out how we could get momentum started and how we could deal with the cynicism and negative thinking about yet another initiative at a very difficult point in time economically. And it started off and we had people that said, I'm willing to give this a shot. There's been a lot of things like this in the past, didn't quite work out, but why not? We'll give it a shot. And it's been neat to see how individuals have turned, and they've turned in part because of their own commitment and buy-in and salesmanship and just a love for what we're trying to accomplish. And then the discussion point really went to momentum. How do we create momentum boosts? And I think one of the benefits of having it on a 6-month cycle is we've got a defined period of time. The energy is high, the commitment is high. The chairs will probably never talk to me again, so it's one way to create a long list of people that won't talk to me again. But changing them out periodically is a great way to bring in that new energy. And we've matched that with swapping out some of the folks on the committee while preserving some of the history and the context that comes to bear as well. So momentum is a thing that has really helped us get to where we are right now. Another aspect of momentum has been we've changed the thematic approaches as we've gone, and so it's changed it just enough to have some unique contributions in each of the phases, and you're going to hear more about that here today. So if we reflect back in the beginning and the skepticism, now we can in many ways celebrate where we've come, because we've identified just under $50 million. And if you do the math and the way the provost explained to us, that's a large amount of money relative to our endowment. There's success in that. And we have said from the outset that we want to take a portfolio approach. We know that not every idea is going to hit on all cylinders, but most of the ideas will, and in fact, as we fine-tune those with business plans, they've been solidified, and in some cases, executive education as an example, it almost doubled from what happened initially. And the neat thing is, as we talk about strategic plan in general, many of the initiatives that have come up to date are a nice match with globalization and some of the other aspects of strategic planning that are touching the table. So thanks to you guys, because that's a short summary of what you have made happen. It hasn't been the leadership on the ITF initiative, it's been the individuals that have been willing to go back and look at some of the same 500 ideas again, search in pockets of the university that we haven't looked in yet, and be creative. We're changing the culture at GW, and when we talk about sustainment, it's not only the initiatives that we'll go forward with, but it's how we think about how we do business, and it's how really, quite frankly, we have broken down a chasm between groups of individuals at the university. This is a real microcosm of the demographics at GW that's present here in these showcases, and it's one team, and that's the neat thing to think about as we look around. Folks are from all aspects of university life, and we're working to a common goal. So with that, let me hit just a few highlights. This first slide, which is captured in a slightly different form out on the innovation.gwu.edu website, tells the story of how we started as a presidential initiative at a point in time when we didn't need to save $60 million, but we wanted to because it's an opportune time, and we led with investment. Steve talked a little bit about the things that we're able to invest in, and that's a great way to tell any story and start any discussion. How would you spend $60 million? I didn't hear anyone say that they had no ideas whatsoever on how to spend $60 million. That's the good news. So everyone has bought in on the destination, and now we got to bring them along for the ride. And we see how that develops. You're all familiar at this point with the different phases. We tried to look at learning and teaching initially. We had mostly business process components that came out of that. We looked at learning as a focus for phase 2. We went back to business processes, and in this current phase, we looked at partnering and a few others that Jim and Rich will explain to you here in a moment. So we've done that. Here's just a quick snapshot of the ideas that are in work. Each icon on here represents a team of individuals from a half dozen to 18 or so individuals that are spending time on a weekly and bi-weekly basis to flesh out these ideas, put business plans in place, and for some of the earlier ones, to execute it and to reap the dollars on the back side of it. So in some ways, you see the entrepreneurship of the university depicted here in this graphical form. If you look at ITF in terms of benefits, there are certainly benefits to the people that have participated and the people that benefit from ITF. The process that has been refined across the university, whether you look at the travel portal. Have any of you used the new travel portal that just launched? Aha. So the next time you have to travel, check out the travel portal and tell me what you think. It's awesome. eExpense, we're doing away with yellow envelopes. There's a lot of process changes that will really bring us forward in terms of how we do business in a real tangible way that a lot of people are going to see. We talked a little bit about the culture and the sustainability of innovative thinking in general, and academic excellence, of course, is where we want to make these investments at the end of the day. And so this is the slide that we affectionately call the anchor slide. We talk about numbers in a variety of different forums, everything from the Board of Trustees down through departmental meetings. And here on the left, Steve had summarized this early on, but you'll see that we're over the $40 million mark. And in fact, the draft, if you don't tell anyone else, and Hatchet, close your ears, we're looking at being up at around $50 million as we update this to reflect what's coming out of phase 4. We will officially put that slide together here just around when we do the next Board of Trustees. But the good news is 50 million of the $60 million target is identified. We're largely moving into the operational mode where we want to be heavily focused on making sure that we do that right, and we've segmented the initiative in a way that we can do that well. And then on the investment side, over $11 million is real cash that has been spent already. So that's where the rubber meets the road. So the criteria, you've seen some of this. Let me just highlight one thing. At the outset, we thought it was critically important to have a positive sum game approach to these ideas. We wanted everyone to be winners. We wanted the individuals that would be affected by the change to enjoy the change. This is something that people could buy into, want to do. And then the individuals that are the beneficiaries of it obviously are going to benefit in that regard on things that are near and dear to the mission that they have. And I won't go through these in detail because you've all seen them before. And then before I turn the mic over to the chairs of Phase 4, you can see on here just a quick snapshot of the types of things that you're going to hear about here today. Everything from better utilization of real estate assets through different ways of educating, different programs. You can see as you go down through the bottom, there's a focus on optimizing what we're doing with research facilities and taking advantage of not only the space that we have available on campus, but improved ways to get at additional indirect cost recovery. And then trying to anticipate other needs beyond kind of the historical college population and reaching out to high school students in a way that's meaningful. So this is what you have before you for the next hour and a half or so, and I really encourage you guys to have fun with it, give feedback. Every year, the showcases have been a valuable, both affirming component of the cycle, but also a way that we could tweak the ideas in a way where they were more meaningful. And so I ask for your help in that same way today. So with that, Jim or Rich, who's up first? Thank you all.
We started this process back in November, where we attended a previous group's meeting, Group 3, and we then proceeded to meet in earnest in late November, early December. And to be honest with you, I think we were a little panicked. We thought, God, all the good ideas have been taken. We did, however, find that through the process of assembling the 13 people that were on this task force, that we really started cranking and getting these ideas out, and we blossomed to about, at one point, 37 ideas. We were astounding ourselves at this point. Well, then they started contracting, and some of the ideas were not so good, and some of the ideas we thought were able to be blended with others. And in the end, the 13 came up with 12. And so we have 12 ideas that we're going to be presenting today. We originally thought we would be operating in themes. And so we had themes of partnering. We had themes of how we could increase the number of students we get to without running into the cap. And we also had themes of how we might increase revenue through our research endeavors. We actually didn't stick to these too religiously, although a number of them you'll see did in fact touch on these themes. So with that, I think we probably need to start looking at some of these and before we go into our breakouts.
Okay, the good news is that innovation is becoming part of the culture here. We discovered that because every time our committee had a great idea, Dave Lawler would tell us that the idea was already thought up and that we needed to go back and come up with something else. And Jim mentions 37 ideas. Those were our ideas. He's not mentioning the 100 that we came up with that bright people around the university had already addressed and that were already underway. So with that said, can we kick off to our next thing? Do we have that? Here is one of our ideas, Columbia Plaza. I don't know if you all know where that is. This is the complex over by CISEX. It's a large building that's over there. Well, George Washington has a relationship with them. We actually are responsible for a certain number of rooms that need to be rented out. And believe it or not, they're not all rented out. In fact, 20, more or less, on an average of 20 a month are not rented out. And George Washington has to pay for those rooms. So our recommendation here is one of elasticity. We believe that if we subsidize the rate, that the rooms will become more attractive and more would rent. This is a very exciting idea. I'm just thrilled with it. Some of you may already be aware of this concept. I wasn't. Students who have bachelor's degrees in some field, any field, oftentimes decide to go into a medical field, dental, veterinarian, nursing, or medical school. But they don't have the math and science prerequisites taken already. They don't have them so that they can move forward into the program. We're suggesting a certificate where they come to George Washington and they take those prerequisite courses that prepare them to go to one of these schools. It's a great idea. It would be out at Virginia. It's chemistry, mathematics, things of that nature. And I think we found some other organizations are doing it. We think we can do it better than other organizations. And I'm just super confident this is going to be a winner for us. What this is more or less replicating what we're doing already, and we're doing it successfully now, but we're doing it on a small scale. This is basically taking the show on the road, taking our faculty, taking our curriculum, our ideas, going to corporations and delivering instruction on site at the company. We're doing this right now very successfully at George Washington. We work with SAIC, Orbital, we work with many firms, with the Navy, we work with Lockheed Martin, primarily in engineering, but there are some other programs outside of engineering that do this. Essentially, the companies love it because their employees can walk down the hall, our faculty members are down there, they take a class, they get a master's degree. The retention at the company is high, and it's profitable, and they get a quality degree. So it's really a win-win situation. We're doing it well now, but we think that other schools that are not involved do have some strong products, if you want to call this degree a product, that we could offer to some of the other companies that we haven't gone to yet.
Have to move it down a little bit, Rich. The Winter Enrichment Program is really a multifaceted idea where we take advantage of the time between semesters in which to offer a number of options. One of these is for the student who's at some risk after their first semester, the undergraduate who is not doing well, who's struggling, and to provide some additional support needed to help that student sustain themselves here. Also, we've noted that there are a number of international students that are here during this period, and if we could offer intensive courses, these would likely be appealing. It would also be an opportunity, and you're going to see a theme of distance education throughout these ideas. It would also be an opportunity to initiate a distance education course or to provide it almost completely within this time frame. And then finally, it would be an opportunity for unique electives that could be offered either on campus or could be partially on campus, it could be offered as a hybrid course. But these would be made available perhaps at graduate level. Another idea that surfaced was the notion of an online undergraduate degree that would be made available to the families to military families, as well as to those that have been involved with some degree of national service. This would be Peace Corps or AmeriCorps. It might be degree completion for some of these, but the idea would be that it would be very targeted. The notion of how this might be structured, other universities have done similar things where there has been a rebranding of the undergraduate distance education degree. The summer of service, this is an idea and primarily for non-GW students who would be interested in coming to Washington, participating in a 6-credit experience, some of which would be in class, and some of it would be engagement within the community. It obviously would be in the DC area, and we think there would be a great deal of appeal for this. And again, it is something that is similar to other programs existing elsewhere. There are a number of master's degree programs that are available online currently through the Graduate School of Education and Human Services, through Health Sciences, through the College of Professional Studies. So this idea is to expand these offerings through other programs. As you can see, there is a pretty reasonable return per cohort. This would be scalable so that it could begin small, could get larger as need would indicate.
Take this back up now. Well, as you know, GW has a very robust research program. And some of the research that we are involved here, sponsored projects and research, take place off campus. Not at Foggy Bottom, not at Mount Vernon, not at the Virginia campus, but off campus in rented space. And when you have a grant or a contract, there is an indirect rate that's charged. The government is charged an indirect rate. And that provides some money to the university to help us cover some of the cost for supporting the research program. That rate on campus is higher than the rate that's off campus. This idea is essentially saying when we have room, either at the Virginia campus or in some room here in Foggy Bottom, especially with the new engineering hall, science and engineering hall being constructed, perhaps we could bring some of these programs back to our on-campus locations, and they would be charged the full indirect rate. And that would yield some additional funds towards the recovery. This, we wanted to have, we were really trying to have an idea where we would always keep sustainability and being green and in our minds. And we really tried to come up with an idea so that we could bring you at least one. And this idea is pretty straightforward. It is happening now at a very small level. It's happening in the law school. They're doing a great job there. And it is simply putting these filters in our water fountains. And we'll be able to get clean water from those water fountains, fill our bottles, fill our glasses, as opposed to bringing in bottled water. It works. It's working at the law school, and we think it could work somewhere else. And basically, we're going to try it. We're recommending it to you. Water takes up a lot of room. The big bottles, the small bottles, we think that we could reduce our procurement of bottled water by 50%. And this is near and dear to my heart. I have a sophomore right now, and I'm thinking about how I'm going to pay for her to go to college. What this is a suggestion for you to think about an online program where high school students can take college courses. When you meet at the table, we'll be able to explain a lot more to you. It's a little bit more complex than that. But essentially, while they're at the high school, a room would be made available for them. They will have a facilitator, a faculty member here that will facilitate it. They'll go online, they'll take the course, they'll complete the course, and they will be able to apply that to a college. We think the best and brightest students would do it, and it would also create a relationship between us and the best and brightest students in the high school. So there's a lot of positive aspects of this. We can talk about it later.
We've identified a number of students that, in fact, move through GW in 3 years. They put together their own programs, they figure out how it's done. So the idea here is to provide an option to those students that would want to pass through in 3 years. When we find students coming with large numbers of AP courses, together with the opportunities during the summer, and also the winter enrichment program, if that were an idea embraced, it would be possible to come through in 3 years. So this is primarily providing advice and advising to students about how this might be accomplished. It wouldn't be right for every student, but it might be right for some, and it would result in a somewhat complicated cycle of savings, but the average would be about $140,000 a year. This is an idea that surfaced. We didn't have an opportunity to vet this fully. It didn't go through the process that other ideas have gone through in terms of figuring out exactly what kind of savings it would be. We kind of framed this just a good idea, a JAG idea. And that is that there's advertising for graduate programs that take place in various places throughout the university, both for on-campus and off-campus. Sometimes that advertising can be redundant. Sometimes we miss the mark. So the idea would be to try to integrate these advertising initiatives across the campus. This obviously requires meeting with various stakeholders in this process and refining it and improving it and making it more efficient. So we're offering this one as an idea that needs to be further explored.
Okay, so we did our best to give you the quick synopsis. You are invited now to go to a table of any of these ideas that interest you. We are going to have 20-minute discussion groups, and then it's going to be like, I think we play music, everybody gets up, they go to another table, and we will continue the discussion. So thank you, and we look forward to seeing you at the tables.